The Toho Project, also known as Toho Project or Project Shrine Maiden, is a series of Japanese bullet hell shoot video games developed by the single-person Team Shanghai Alice. Team Shanghai Alice's sole member, ZUN, independently produces the game's graphics, music, and programming. Plots in the Toho Project games revolve around the strange phenomena occurring in Gensokyo, a fictional realm inhabited by humans and yōkai, supernatural beings. Prior to the events of the games, Gensokyo was sealed off from the outside world by a magical barrier. The main protagonist of the series, Ryumu Hakure, is a shrine maiden who manages the border-fighting antagonistic yōkai. The first 5 games were produced for the Japanese NEC PC 9801 computer series. Bullet hell mechanics were introduced in the second game, Story of Eastern Wonderland. The embodiment of Scarlet Devil, released in August 2002, marked a shift to the Microsoft Windows platform, bringing the games to a larger audience. Several sequels followed, including spin-off fighting games that diverged from the series' traditional mechanics. The series was inducted into the Guinness World Records in October 2010 for being the most prolific fan-made shooter series. The Toho Project has spawned a media franchise including commercial fan books, music, light novels, and manga in addition to the main series games. PC 98 predecessor games. The Toho series of games started on the Japanese PC 98 series of computers, and its first 5 entries are native to the platform. Standard PC users are only capable of playing them through an emulator. Also, the PC 9801 series of computers was already on the decline when these games were released. Because of this, they are not well known among players. The group that published these games was called Amusement Makers, highly responsive to prayers. The first game of the Toho series, released in 1996. It is not a vertical top-down shooter like most other games in the series, and is similar to Arkanoid instead. Ryumu Hakure, the perpetual protagonist, was introduced in this game. Ryumu Hakure enters through the gateway into another world, intent on locating and punishing the one responsible for destroying her shrine. Players direct a yin-yang orb with amulets to break away blocks, and the level is over once all of them are gone. If the player runs out of time on a level, bullets will rain down until the player completes the level or dies. Bosses are defeated by hitting the orb into them until the life is fully depleted. Story of Eastern Wonderland, the second Toho game, released in August 1997 at Comiket 52. This is the first Danmaku game of the series, and also marks the first appearance of Marisa Kirasame, the second major player character of the series. The resident shrine maiden Ryumu Hakure returns from a training session in the mountains only to find the Hakure shrine overrun by a contingent of ghosts and yōkai. Excited at the opportunity to test her fledgling abilities, she takes the powerful Hakure yin-yang orbs and takes off on the back of her turtle Genji to seek out the source of the invasion. The gameplay is generally the same as Eastern Wonderland throughout the rest of the series. Phantasmagoria of Dream, a 2-player versus-type shooter similar to Twinkle Star Sprites. The game is labeled as the third Toho game, released in December 1997 in Comiket 53. Ryumu Hakure discovers that some mysterious ruins have suddenly appeared just outside the Hakure shrine. She joins in a violent competition with the other people who want to explore them. It is said that the one who reaches the heart of the ruins first will win a prize. Lotus Land Story, the fourth game of the series, released in August 1998 in Comiket 54. This game introduces the focus mode, a staple of the series hereafter, that slows the sprite's movement to facilitate dodging bullets. Following the events of the previous games, the world is once again at peace until yōkai begin to swarm the Hakurei Shrine and a tremendous power surges from beneath a lake high in the mountains. The Shrine Maiden Ryumu Hakurei once again seeks out and eliminates the source of the disturbance. Only on this occasion, she is unwittingly joined by an old rival. According to ZUN, only 200 to 300 copies of the game were sold at the time. The game's title used the caption Gensokyo, but the world's name is not used until the embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Mystic Square, the fifth and final Toho game for the PC 98, released in December 1998 in Comiket 55. Mima and Yuka, final bosses of the story of Eastern Wonderland and Lotus Land story respectively, return as playable characters in this game. As so often is the case in Toho games, something is amiss within Gensokyo. A massive quantity of demons are pouring from a cave high within the mountains. Seeking the source of this invasion, Ryumu Hakurei and co. must travel through Makai to confront the one behind the problem. Windows games. After Mystic Square, the Toho Project became inactive for 4 years while its creator ZUN began to develop several music scores for the Touhou games. He then left the group and made Toho games for Windows under his own group Team Shanghai Alice. The playability of the Windows games was substantially improved compared to that of the PC 98 counterparts. Most douyin works derived from the Toho series are centered on these games. The embodiment of Scarlet Devil. This is the sixth Toho game and the first on Windows. It greatly exceeded the PC 98 games graphically, switched from FM synthesis to synthesized PCM music, and was the first game to gather a substantial Western fan base. The story, told by conversations between characters during interludes in the action, goes as such. The land of Gensokyo has been engulfed by a scarlet mist, and its inhabitants no longer see the sun. As the Shrine Maiden Ryumu Hakurei, the witch Marisa Kirasame, the player attempts to deal with the source of the mist, a mysterious figure called the Scarlet Devil. Perfect Cherry Blossom. This is the seventh Toho game. It is unusual among the recent releases in that the English and Japanese titles are not similar in meaning. Its Japanese title could be rendered as Bewitching Dream. As the month turns to May, winter has lasted far longer than normal in Gensokyo, and the denizens begin to suspect foul play. As Ryumu, Marisa, or the new arrival Sakuya is a yōkai, the player embarks on a search for those who are working to prevent spring's coming. Perfect Cherry Blossom continues the tradition of the Toho games, with the reappearance of former bosses as playable characters. Sakuya is the head maid of the vampire Emilia Scarlet, better known as the Scarlet Devil, and the player has fought her 3 times before in embodiment of Scarlet Devil. Immaterial and Missing Power. This game was produced in collaboration with Twilight Frontier, and is the 5th Toho game in the series. Despite being released after Imperishable Night, it is numbered 7.5 because the events in this game took place before those of Imperishable Night. Immaterial and Missing Power is a 2D fighting game instead of the usual scrolling shooter. Though Team Shanghai Alice was only responsible for the storyline and some of the music, the game was listed as one of the team's official works. Initially playable characters in this game include some of the characters from previous Windows games, such as the 2 protagonists Ryumu Hakurei and Marisa Kirasame. Alice Murgatroyd, Yumu Konpaku's Sakuya is a yōkai and patchouli knowledge. More characters become become playable as the player finishes the story mode with the initially playable characters, and so on. An official patch to the game adds Hong Mirin as a playable character, but she is not available in the story mode. Imperishable Night. This is the 8th Toho game. It was released at the Comiket 66 convention in August 2004. This story's focus is on a rather more insidious evil than past games. Gensokyo's yearly event, the Moon Viewing Feast, is only one dawn away, but someone seems to have replaced the moon with a fake that will not grow full. A team of human and yōkai set out to remedy this before the night is over. The story says that the team the player selects is the only team heading out to investigate, which has caused some problems within the Toho canon. In this entry, each of the usual playable characters gets a teammate from the non-human side of Gensokyo. Ryumu Hakure allies with Yukari Yakumo, yōkai of the boundary, Marisa Kirasame with Alice Margatroyd, the seven-colored puppeteer, and Sakuyu brings her mistress, Remilia Scarlet. The new team is half-ghost Yumu Konpaku and full-ghost Yuyuko Saikuji. Stage 5 and final bosses of Perfect Cherry Blossom respectively. All the other characters appeared in Perfect Cherry Blossom. Phantasmagoria of Flower View. This is the 9th Toho game. It was released in August 2005 at the Summer Comiket 68 convention. This game is a versus-type shooter like Phantasmagoria of Dream, and has very different gameplay from the past 3 entries in the series. The story puts the characters in an investigation on why the flowers of Gensokyo are blooming out of season and more than usual. Initially playable characters include Ryumu, Marisa and Sakuya as usual, but the list adds on as the player progresses in the storyline of each of the players. Shoot the Bullet. This is the 5th game in the series. It was released at the Comiket 69 convention in December 2005. The game is meant to be the game version of the official fan book, Bohemian Archive in Japanese read. The player, as Tengu reporter Ayase Maru, is tasked with taking pictures of bosses for her newspaper to clear successively more difficult stages. The game is unique in that the player has no standard shotter bombs. Rather, the camera is the main method of offense and defense as it clears bullets from the screen. Scoring is based on the contents of each photo, boss location, number of bullets, and alias position. Notably, this is one of only 3 games in which Ryumu Hakure is not a playable character. In fact, she does not even appear as an enemy. Mountain of Faith. This is the 10th Toho game. It was announced in early May 2007, and a trial version was released at the Right Eyes I4 convention on May 20, 2007. The full game was released on the first day of Comiket 72, August 17, 2007. Ryumu receives an order to close down the Hakure Shrine, or it will be torn down and the god of Yōkai Mountain will take it over. As either Ryumu or Marisa, the player has to ascend to the top of Yōkai Mountain to find the god behind the happenings and prevent the shrine from being taken over. Scarlet Weather Rhapsody. This is the second versus fighting game similar to Immaterial and Missing Power and the 5th Toho game by Team Shanghai. Alice and Twilight Frontier. It was released on May 25, 2008. The storyline in the game revolves around the strange weather patterns occurring around Gensokyo, and as the characters are chosen in the game, they must find out who is controlling it. This is the first game to introduce the card deck system and changing weather conditions that affects the gameplay during matches. Subterranean Animism. This is the 11th Toho game. It was announced on May 1, 2008. A demo was released at the Right Eyes I5 convention alongside the full version of Scarlet Weather Rhapsody. The full version was released on August 16, 2008 at Comiket 74. A mysterious quasar appears one day near the Haku-Rei Shrine, which also seems to spout evil spirits from underground. Ryumu and Marisa go underground with the help of one of 3 yōkai and stop the source of the geyser before things get far too out of hand. Undefined fantastic object. This is the 12th Toho game. It was announced on February 26, 2009. A demo was released at the Right Eyes I6 convention on March 8, 2009, and the full version was released on August 15, 2009 at Comiket 76. Spring has come to Gensokyo and a magical flying ship that is said to bring good omen has appeared in the sky. The player assumes the role of either Ryumu, Marisa, or Sanekotia, who returns from Mountain of Faith, as the 3 girls race to board the vessel. While the separate bomb counter is back, the scoring system gets complemented by the undefined fantastic objects, or UFOs, that appear as traditional unidentified flying objects in 3 colors and must be collected in groups of 3 in order to get different bonuses. Toho Tensoku, the 3rd versus fighting game and the 12.3th Toho game done by Team Shanghai, Alice and Twilight Frontier. It was announced on July 23, 2009, and was released at Comiket 76 on August 15, 2009. The game introduces new spell cards and weather conditions as well as improved gameplay. Characters from Scarlet Weather Rhapsody can be played in versus mode if the game is installed. The story mode, which is playable with Sanekotia, Serno, and Hongmirin, revolves around the silhouette of a giant creature, which piqued the interest of the denizens of Gensokyo. Both Sane and Serno's scenarios involve the investigation of the strange being and to find out who is controlling the strange giant. Marin's scenario involves fighting a strange being in a dream who wanted to destroy the world. This is the only Toho game in the series to not have an official English subtitle. Double spoiler. This is the 5th game in the series announced by ZUN on March 3, 2010. The game was released on March 14, 2010 at the Right Eyes I7 convention. The game focuses again on Aisha Maru and is meant as a sequel to Shoot the Bullet, as it has the same gameplay style but adds new characters and spell cards, covering all characters from Mountain of Faith onwards. Fairy Wars. This is the 8th game in the series announced by ZUN on July 23, 2010. The game is a continuation of the Toho Sanjutsu manga series and was released at Comiket 78 on August 14, 2010. Serno is the main character of the game and the gameplay is focused on vertical shooting with the inclusion of the ability to freeze bullets. 10 Desires. This is the 13th game in the series. It was announced on February 28, 2011. A demo was slated for release at the Right Eyes I8 convention on March 13, 2011. However, the trial release was temporarily cancelled due to the Tohoku earthquake. The full game was released at Comiket 80 on August 13, 2011. Ryumu, Marisa and Sane are once again playable as they were in the latest main installment in the franchise Undefined Fantastic Object, joined by Yumu Konpaku as a 4th playable character. In this game, Ryumu and Marisa notice an increase in divine spirits and take off to investigate. Sane seeks to utilize the power of the divine spirits for the Motoi shrine gods, and Yumu Konpaku wants to exterminate all ghosts that are not under her right. Hopeless Masquerade. This is the 5th game in the series, and the 4th versus fighting game created by Team Shanghai, Alice and Twilight Frontier. It was announced on October 5, 2012. The game features a completely different style of 2D sprites compared to the earlier fighter games. A demo was released at Comiket 83 in December 2012, and the final version of the game was released at I-10 on May 26, 2013. Double Dealing Character. This is the 14th game in the series, which was announced by ZUN on May 11, 2013. A trial version of the game was released at I-10 on May 26, 2013, and the full version was released at Comiket 84 on August 12, 2013. Ryumu and Marisa are once again playable, and Sakuya is now a playable character for the first time since Phantasmagoria of Flower of You. The story revolves around the yōkai rioting all over Gensokyo and the individual weapons of the three protagonists starting to act oddly. It is the job to either take the weapons in hand and fight the yōkai, or to cast the weapons aside. Impossible spell card. This is the 14.3 road official game in the series, was announced on April 12, 2014, and was released at Riot's 11 on May 11, 2014. The game is a Danmaku type that deviates from the usual play style, and involves the player controlling Seer Kijin, who uses a series of cheat items to clear spell cards. Urban Legend in Limbo. This is the 5th official game in the series, and the 5th versus fighting game created by Team Shanghai, Alice and Twilight Frontier. It was announced by ZUN at the Digital Game Expo 2014 on November 16, 2014, and released on May 10, 2015. The game features a similar style and gameplay to the previous Toho fighting game Hopeless Masquerade. The game art is by Moharu Kawa and was announced alongside another minigame by ZUN titled Danmaku Amano Jaku Gold Rush. Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom. This is the 15th game in the series, which was announced by ZUN on April 22, 2015. The game features 4 playable characters: Ryumu, Marisa, Sana and Raisin. It was released on August 14, 2015. Gameplay. In the shooting games, the player's bullet power increases on a linear scale as the player collects power-ups dropped by enemies, and eventually maxes out. The player can also collect point icons to earn extra lives. The amount needed grows exponentially as the player's score rises. The player can use focus as the shift key by default, which slows down the player's movement, makes the collision box visible, and focuses the player's attack to make it more powerful. The Graze counter, missing from Mountain of Faith and Story of Eastern Wonderland, tracks how many bullets entered the character sprite but avoided the collision box, and rewards the player with a score bonus for living on the edge. The player can use a weapon called a spell card, which is similar to a bomb in most other shooting games, while the player has a limited number. Using one makes the user temporarily invulnerable and uses a special magical attack that generally clears the screen. Each character has 2 cards with different names and patterns. The player can use one during a short period after being hit by a bullet to avoid loss of a life. The amount of time the player has available to use the border is usually around 0.3 seconds. Bosses also have spell cards, but with bosses the term applies to a prolonged pattern of movements and shots that lasts until the player depletes the boss's health by a certain amount of the time runs out, not a one-shot attack. Each individual game of the main series after Embodiment of Scarlet Devil has additional items that affects the aspect of gameplay. such as scoring or gaining extra lives bombs. For example, Perfect Cherry Blossom has cherry points, which are used mostly in scoring, but can grant temporary invulnerability. Imperishable Night has time points, which are essential for advancing to later stages, and also determine if the player gets to challenge a boss's final spell on normal or higher difficulties. Mountain of Faith has faith points, which boost the score the player receives upon gathering point items and bonuses for clearing spell cards without dying or using a spell card. Each Toho game has 4 difficulty levels: easy, normal, hard, and lunatic, with each one being harder than the previous one. Regardless of difficulty choice, there are 6 stages in each game, and each one is harder than the previous. The only exception to this is Embodiment of Scarlet Devil on easy difficulty, which only has 5 stages. In addition to the 4 main difficulties, there is an extra stage which is a long and difficult stage in which players must play through hordes of enemies, and an especially long boss fight. In order to reach the extra stage, one must beat the game on normal difficulty or higher without the use of a continue. The only games that allow players to reach the extra stage by completing the easy difficulty are Story of Eastern Wonderland, Mystic Square, Perfect Cherry Blossom, Imperishable Night, Fairy Wars, and Double Dealing Character. In terms of difficulty, the extra stage is around the normal difficulty level or above. In Perfect Cherry Blossom, there is also a Phantasm extra stage in which the enemies that were already difficult in the extra stage have become even more challenging. Although the Phantasm stage is aimed for the most experienced players, the difficulty is somewhere in between hard and lunatic. The Phantasm stage is accessed by beating the extra stage and capturing at least 60 spells with any of the characters and weapon types combined.